Ni salamu kutoka kwa Godfrey Madaraka Nyerere, mtoto wa hayati Mwalimu Julius Kambarage. Najua nyinyi mna historia ya karibu sana ambayo inatufanya tuunganika kwa pamoja baina ya Tanzania na Uganda.
Kabisa. Unajua kwamba kitu ambacho cha karibu ni kwamba of course tuna Lake Victoria ambayo nchi kama nchi ya Uganda, Tanzania yote tunategemea. Vile kuna historia ambayo Uganda hasa katika sasa hivi tukizungumzia kuhusu serikali ambayo iko uongozini, ni kwamba kulikuwepo na jinsi Tanzania ilisaidia wakati kulikuwepo na matatizo pale nyuma. Na of course kuna mambo mengi ambayo tunafanya pamoja, na sasa hivi hatuzungumzii kuhusu yale ambayo yalitendeka miaka 20-30 ambayo yalipita, lakini tunazungumzia ni kwamba nini tunaweza tukafanya sasa hizi, ni yapi ambayo tunaweza fanya kwenda miaka zingine zijazo, na haswa tunazungumzia biashara.
Naam, Dennis, tupate fursa kumsikiliza Major General Simuli, balozi wa Tanzania nchini Uganda, na mtazamaji uweze kumsikia anazungumza hivi sasa.
Mkurugenzi wa Afrika Mashariki First, natambua uwepo wako. Mheshimiwa Waziri, natambua uwepo wako. Mheshimiwa Balozi wa Uganda katika Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, natambua uwepo wako. Mimi nisipoteze muda kwa sababu najua wasemaji wako kule. Nikimwona profesa pale yupo, najua atawapa mengi sana vijana, lakini mimi vile nitambue familia ya Mwalimu Nyerere kutukaribisha hapa Mwitongo, Butiama. Nianze kusema kwamba namshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu kwa yote aliyotujalia. Tumesafiri kutoka Uganda mpaka hapa sio kwa ujanja wetu, bali Mwenyezi Mungu ametulinda na kutuongoza mpaka tukafika hapa. Na nishukuru familia ya Mwalimu Nyerere. Kwa sisi sote hapo ni jambo la kuiga. Wamekubali kuja hapa, umati wote huu, na wengine hapa bado hawajaingia, lakini wamekubali. Wanafata nyayo za baba yao Mwalimu Nyerere, vinginevyo wasingetukaribisha. Niseme kwamba tunasherehekea jubilei ya miaka 25 toka Mwalimu Nyerere alipofariki, ambaye ni mwanzilishi wa taifa la Tanzania. Si mchezo miaka 25, kwa sababu mimi mtoto wangu wa kwanza wakati Mwalimu anafariki na yeye ndio anazaliwa, lakini alishamaliza chuo kikuu na yuko mitaani. Kwa hiyo ukiangalia ni muda mrefu, lakini leo hii tumeacha shughuli zetu kuja kuungana na familia hii ili tuweze kuzungumza mawili matatu. Najua mtayapata mengi sana kutoka kwa wasemaji wetu ambao mnawaona wako upande wangu wa kushoto. Mimi ninayo machache kama mawili tu kwa vijana, na hasa vijana wa East Africa pamoja na Afrika kwa ujumla. La kwanza, na wasisitiza tuige yale Mwalimu aliyokuwa akiishi. Mwalimu akiwa na umri wa miaka 12 alipoanza shule, alikataa kujionyesha kwamba yeye anatoka katika familia ya mfalme. Alitaka kujiweka sawa na wengine, na ndio maana akaendelea kuwa kiongozi hata alipokuwa shuleni. Hilo ni moja. Kwa hiyo tujiweke kuwa sawa na wengine, tutakuwa na amani, tutakuwa na upendo. La pili ni jinsi gani alivyoiunganisha Tanzania. kuna mambo makuu matatu. Mwalimu Nyerere baada ya kupata uhuru aliamua Watanzania wote watumie lugha ya Kiswahili, lakini haina maana kwamba lugha hii ya Kiswahili ni ya Watanzania. Hapana, ni ya Afrika. Aliwaunganisha kwa kutumia lugha hii ya Kiswahili. Sasa sisi kama vijana tufanyeje? Tunatakiwa kujitahidi kuiweka lugha hii ya Kiswahili. Wale waliokuwa kanisani, nadhani hata mwashamu askofu amesema kwamba ukitaka kuunganisha watu ni lazima uwaunganishe ili uweze kupata thawabu mbinguni. Kwa hiyo aliwaunganisha Watanzania wote vijijini, mjini na sehemu zingine kwa kutumia lugha ya Kiswahili. Hivyo ndivyo alivyowini. La pili, aliondoa ukabila. Aliondoa ukabila kwa kusema kwamba wewe kijana ukipata mchumba kokote kule, iwe Mtwara, iwe Moshi, iwe hapa Mara, oa. Ukiangalia walivyooana wa Tanzania, wameondoa kitu kinachoitwa ukabila. Hawana ukabila. Kwa hiyo imesaidia sana hiyo. Na jambo la tatu ambalo alilifanya baada ya uhuru, kitu cha kwanza alisema elimu kwa watoto wote ni bure. Na tulisoma bure, mimi nikiwa mojawapo mfaidika. Na ukifaulu, kama wewe ni mtu wa hapa Mara, kuingia form 1 mpaka form 6 hautasoma hapa. Utapelekwa kusini, utapelekwa Bukoba, ili ukakutane na Watanzania wengine, uwatambue kwamba hao ni ndugu zako. Na sasa tunalifanya hili la elimu kwa sababu utakuta kuna Watanzania wako Uganda, Kenya, Burundi wanasoma. Sasa inawezekana tunalifanya hili, lakini sio kwa ule msingi. Watu wanakwenda tu kusoma, hawaelewi kwamba anaenda kusoma ili atafute ndugu zake wengine walioko kule Uganda, walioko Kenya, walioko Ethiopia, walioko wapi. Kama ni Afrika Mashariki, wewe kama kijana ukienda kusoma sehemu, hauendi tu kusoma. Kweli unatakiwa usome upate maarifa, lakini katika maarifa hayo unatakiwa uwajue ndugu zako walioko huko, Waafrika wenzako. Umeenda South Africa, wajue Waafrika wenzako na ufanye nao kazi kwa karibu. Kwa hiyo mambo haya matatu yaliifanya Tanzania ikawa kitu kimoja. Sasa hatujachelewa kuyafata haya mambo matatu. Kama sisi ni Afrika Mashariki kweli, hatujachelewa. Isipokuwa tunaweza tukawa tunayachelewesha kwa sababu ya mtu binafsi. Lakini haya yote Kiswahili, kuoana huko na huko, elimu kwenda kupata kule, yote yanaweza yakafanyika na tukaunganisha Afrika Mashariki na tukawa na sauti moja, na baadaye Afrika. Malengo ya Mwalimu ni kuiunganisha Afrika. Lakini ukiangalia toka tupate uhuru, nchi zote za Afrika mpaka leo tuko tofauti sana. Kila mmoja, kila nchi inakwenda inavyotaka yenyewe, au pengine kwa kuendeshwa na taifa lililokuwa limemtawala. Lakini tunashindwa kusema no, haya Hii ni Afrika, tunatakiwa kuwa kama Afrika. Kuna mwanajeshi mmoja amepindua hizi nchi za Afrika Magharibi. Amesema no, hatuwezi kuwafuata nyinyi wa Faransa, tunafuata ya kwetu. Sasa tunatakiwa kuiga hivyo. Nyinyi vijana mnaokuja, hakikisheni kitu cha kwanza nyinyi mnaungana vijana. Ukiwachukulia maprofesa wamezeeka sasa, hawana nguvu, wamebaki kazi yao ni kuwaelekezeni nyinyi vijana, na ndivyo mtakavyosikia maneno mengi kutoka kwa hawa. Na mkielekezwa msiwe wagumu. Tatizo jingine moja ambalo tunalo sisi vijana, tuna majibu tayari ya kila swali tunaloulizwa au maelekezo yanayotolewa, na jibu letu ni kwamba hiyo haiwezekani. Akikushauri mtu ushauri unasema hiyo haiwezekani. Umefanya utafiti? Fulani alishindwa, mimi nitawezaje? No, inawezekana. Kuna vitu ambavyo alishindwa katika kutekeleza. Sasa badilika wewe kama kijana. Sasa hivi vijana mnaitwa jina ambalo hata nyinyi vijana mmelifurahia sana, Gen Z. Yani generation Z. Na nyinyi vijana mnaona ufahari kuitwa hivyo. Katika mila za Tanzania hapa kuna majina yanatolewa. Kwa mfano sikudhani, sikujua. Ukimuita hilo jina na tabia yake, mtoto atakuwa na tabia hiyo hiyo ya kutodhani, ya kutojua na hata jua. Kwa hiyo hilo jina msiliendekeze kuita Gen Z. Kwanza Z ni nini? Si zero. Kwa hiyo nyinyi ni zero. Mimi nawaasa vijana, kuweni na mawazo ya kwenu ya Kiafrika na mazingira ya Kiafrika. Nipende kusema tu kwamba nimefurahi kuwaona kuja hapa, na nisipoteze muda sana, lakini mnakaribishwa Tanzania, mnakaribishwa muda wowote. Msisubiri mihadhara kama hii ndio mfike Tanzania. Hapana, muda wowote ukijisikia karibu. Lakini vile vile ofisi ya ubalozi ya Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania nchini Uganda, wanaotoka Uganda, hata kama unatoka Burundi, ukipita Uganda siku hiyo umekuja kutembea, labda umekuja utalii, fika ofisini pale. Hiyo ni ofisi ya Afrika Mashariki, ieleweke hivyo. Kwa hiyo tutakusikiliza na tutakusaidia. Kama umekuja kupiga story, tutapiga story asubuhi mpaka jioni. Asanteni sana kwa kunisikiliza.
Na mtazamaji wa TBC na UBC, ni balozi wa Tanzania nchini Uganda, Major General Paul Kisesa Simuli. Dennis,
all right, maybe I'll take it up on a little bit on English, and basing on what the Ambassador Kisesa has just said is about the current generation. What are they up to? I think they need a lot of inspiration. There's some of them who have lost focus, and of course those ones in leadership have a role to play in trying to refocus them. And the fact is this: we have a very young population in this region, that is in the entire East African region, and the population is also growing very, very fast. And basing on what Mwalimu Julius Nyerere said a long time ago, he said that the youth, of course, they are a resource. But they are only a resource if they can be if that resource can be tapped into. And lately, you've noticed what is happening across the region. We tend to have very many of our very educated young children, youth, leaving the country and maybe going to Saudi Arabia, others going to Dubai, others going to out there. But these, they are meant to be our resource. So I think besides talking about trying to unify the area or unify the region, I think there's also pertinent issues that that must be addressed, and that and I'm pointing out the issues of the young generation. And of course, like his speech or his comment is based on what happened in the neighboring country recently. About 2-3 months ago, there were like riots. Young people died on the streets. They called themselves, they say they had a movement. They have no leader. They have no religion. So now, if you have no religion, you have no leader, then definitely it becomes very difficult, because at the end of the day, you need a leader so that you can find whom, if you're to tackle an issue, how do we go forward with that? Thank you.
Naam, ni mwenzangu Dennis Ogola wa UBC na matangazo haya kwa pamoja kabisa akizungumza hotuba ya balozi wa Tanzania Uganda, akizungumza kuhusu umoja, akizungumza jinsi vijana wa Afrika Mashariki wanavyoweza kuungana, lakini pia wanavyoweza kuhakikisha kwamba hawaendani na ama hawafuati upepo ambao unaweza ukaondoa kwenye msingi wa kuhakikisha kwamba wanatumia rasilimali za mataifa yao ili kuleta maendeleo. Nikumbuka kwamba vijana wa Afrika Mashariki wako hapa Butiama wakimtumia Mwalimu Nyerere kama alama ya kufanya mageuzi makubwa ya kuhakikisha kwamba angalau wanajua Afrika ilikotoka, Afrika Mashariki ilikotoka, na Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya na nchi nyingine Rwanda, Burundi zilivyotoka. Kwa hiyo ni umoja unajengwa.
Somalia, hata sasa hivi tu Somalia pia wameingia kwa hapo. Ethiopia pia tunaambiwa kwamba wangependa kuungana na Afrika Mashariki, labda
za Mwalimu zinatimia.
Yeah, of course zinatimia kabisa. Alafu kuna jambo moja ambalo zilizungumziwa kitambo kidogo na Bwana Tendo, akizungumzia kuhusu kulipia visa, yeah? Nimesafiri sana katika nchi za Afrika na unagundua ni kwamba kuna nchi fulani hata hapa karibu tu unalipia $50, $100, ila hali tunajiita kwamba tuko katika jamii. So tukisema tuko kwa jamii na nalipia $50, hata kwanza tunazungumzia dola, tuzungumzie pesa zetu sisi wenyewe, tunazungumzia dola za Kimarekani, na una pale ukienda kulipisha unaambiwa unalipishwa kwa dola za Kimarekani. Sasa tunaona ni kwamba tukizidi kulipia inamaanisha kwamba umoja wetu uko wapi? Tunajiita Afrika Mashariki, jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki. Hii jumuiya, how does it work? Hiyo ndio swali, kwa sababu tunalipia kusafiri. Na mimi kama raia wa Afrika Mashariki ningependelea kwamba sote tuweze kuingia kusafiri bila vikwazo, au sio?
Naona jitihada zinapigwa. Uganda na Tanzania tunaonyesha mfano. Tuna mradi mkubwa wa bomba la mafuta la EACOP wa mfano kabisa ambao unazidi kuonyesha kwamba sasa tuungane katika rasilimali.
Na unaona miradi kama hiyo, especially kama EACOP, unaona kwamba ina uwezo wa kuunganisha nchi hizi mbili. Kumbuka kwamba kwanza kuna ushoroba wa kati ambao tunaita Central Corridor, kuna ambao wanaita Southern Corridor, lakini kwa muda fulani hapo zamani ni kwamba ushoroba wa kati ulikuwa unatumika sana kushinda ushoroba wa nadhani kaskazini, Northern Corridor, biashara kati ya Uganda na vile Tanzania. Lakini kwa muda fulani miaka nadhani kuanzia 70 hadi 90 biashara ilishuka chini kabisa. Lakini katika mwaka wa 2015 hadi sasa unaona kwamba biashara ishaanza kurudi tena katika ushoroba wa kati.
Naona tutarejea hapa tusikilize wasilisho kutoka kwa mwasilishaji wengine, na mtazamaji wa UBC na TBC tutakuambia nini kinaendelea hapa.
The preamble of my talk and speech to you today is the hand of the Pan-Africanist from Tanzania to Zimbabwe. I have come not just to laud, reflect and celebrate Mzee Julius Nyerere, but also to cause us to take a moment to pause and reflect at the magnanimity and wisdom of the man to whom we owe a lot. Ndugu MADARAKA Nyerere, how do I break this to you? Mzee Nyerere sired many children, some of you which you do not know. Some of us are those children in Southern Africa, in the country of Zimbabwe, where I am from. There is now over 16 million of us, his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. We are products of his desire for independence across the African continent, which he built, which he very much built, molded, and shouldered. But as my mind wanders in deep respect for him, I also do not forget to pay homage to Mama Nyerere and to the Nyerere family for your graciousness in being with us, though she's not here with us today. Ndugu, you are representing her. For to Mama Nyerere and the family, I must say, I am in awe of your great character. I am in awe. I am in awe. I am in awe of your great character and love back then that allowed you to share Mzee with the people of the great republic and the great people of Republic of Tanzania, as well as the greater expanse of Africa. By his side and behind the scenes, you supported, and your support for Mzee, your counsel and comfort in those times when in frustration within him, sorry. Thank you. By his side and behind the scenes,
Na mtazamaji wa TBC1 na UBC, ni mwakilishi wa Zimbabwe anaitwa Comrade Moffat Ngarande akihutubia hapa Butiama katika kumbukizi ya Mwalimu Nyerere. Basi tuendelee kumsikiliza na baadaye tutakupa maelezo zaidi.
In those times when frustrations within him would have seen him give up, such comforts can never be undervalued nor underestimated. For in those times, you gave him courage to continue against adversity and risk, not just to his family, but also to this nation of Tanzania. I graciously thank you. As Zimbabweans today, we walk on a street named after the late icon. Within the metropolitan capital city is a well-trodden road called Julius Nyerere Way. For indeed, he paved a way in our thinking that sought to seek independence, unity, and to espouse the mindset of what we call Ubuntu. And Ubuntu means that I am because we are. In 1961, Tanzania, when you gained independence from the British colonialists, Mzee Nyerere was cognizant that that other fellow brothers were still in the shackles of colonialization and depravity. The greatest burden of accommodating the early years of our liberation struggle, stalwarts in Southern Africa, was carried by Tanzania, leading into the formation of what was known as the frontline states, becoming SADC. In April 1975, the frontline states, then consisting of Botswana, Lesotho, Tanzania, and Zambia, were formally recognized as an entity and as a committee of the Assembly of the Heads of State of the Organization of African Unity. The proximity of the other countries I have just mentioned, Botswana, Lesotho, Zambia, to the apartheid South Africa, which was still under apartheid, militarily, and a country which was militarily strong, as well as intertwined economically and socially, meant a coordinated approach was required as the flames of freedom spread southwards within the African continent. Future generations, such as myself and others, would not dare to dream, to hope for freedom without the way. the foundations of thought, and indeed the actions of Mzee Mwalimu and others. It is this way of solidarity, togetherness, cohesion that today brings us from various corners of this great continent to pay homage and remembrance to Mzee Nyerere, the people of Tanzania, and to others like him who crafted a vision of togetherness, harmony, love, and a hunger for independence. The tone being that, in spite of our differences in language, separated by borders that are not of our own crafting, we should, and indeed we must, endeavor to find common ground and to build not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. Mzee Mwalimu, the teacher, forever casts his great legacy over us, that without teaching, understanding, being accommodating, and hospitality, we cannot build anything as a family. One continent, as we strive for the next battle for economic freedom and prosperity. As today we are found here, we must pledge and re-pledge to always seek to be united, to focus more on those things that unite us rather than those things that divide us, and also lay in our small ways a path for those to come to walk on, learn from, and be mindful never to forget the sacrifices done by Mzee and his generation. We must also be mindful that without sacrifice for the greater good, the dream of a better prosperous tomorrow can and shall always be a phantom and a dream. May we seek to not to stain the memory of those gone before us, and commit to foster unity, peace, and also to pass on the baton to the next generation to go forth and bring economic prosperity. The teachings we learned, we must also hold them dear to our bosom and give them to those to come, through and in our actions in protecting jealously the resources of this great continent. It is only in action, persuasion of others, that we give true reverence and homage to the great Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Though diverse in language and location, we must always seek to be one in prosperity, in progress, in ambition. As I conclude, let me say, I am here only because he was here. Let me leave this with you as we go into our deliberations. It is better to be than to seem to be. And that, well done, is better than well said. To Mama Nyerere in absentia, I wish her maisha marefu. And to Africa, I say, one Africa, one people. Asante.
Na mtazamaji wa TBC na UBC, ni Comrade Moffat kutoka Zimbabwe akiwakilisha vyama vya ukombozi vya kusini mwa Afrika, vyama ambavyo vilisababisha ukombozi katika kusini mwa Afrika akitokea Zimbabwe. Dennis, naona tayari Mwalimu ni alama ya Afrika, Waafrika wengi wa kukutana pamoja.
Yes, Mwalimu ndio unaona ni kwamba watu wamekuja wengi, na katika sehemu ambayo tumeketi hapa tunaona hizo tutaita ni kama VIP kind of event. Wale watu ambao unaona hapa ni kwamba ni wale wamealikwa kwa attend the forum ambayo inaendelea, lakini ule upande mwingine ambao kuna museum ya Mwalimu, kwamba sehemu ile imejaa watu wengi kabisa. Lakini tukirejelea mambo ambayo yamezungumziwa pale ni kwamba we are supposed to be one people, one Africa, one continent, one people. There are those ones who are ambao wanasema kwamba wao they are not actually they are even nchi ambazo ziko Afrika ambazo zinasema kwamba wao si wa Afrika. Unaona? Unaona? Ni cha maajabu kwamba wanasema unapatikana katika continent ya Africa but una claim kwamba you are not African. Unaona, inakuwa ni vigumu sana. Tunajua na tukiwa na tournament ya mpira kama mpira ambao unakuja hivi karibuni ambayo tumefanya bidding Uganda, Kenya na Tanzania. Unaona ni kwamba hao ni nchi tatu za Afrika Mashariki. Na ukiwa na tournament kama hiyo unapata hizo nchi ambazo zina claim kwamba wao sio nchi za Afrika wanacheza ama wanahusika katika hizo mchuano. So ni hivyo tu, ni kwamba tukiendelea kuwa na changamoto ni kwamba ni sisi wenyewe ambayo ni sisi wenyewe tutaumia. It is us to suffer in the long run, because when we have very many non-tariff barriers, when our people cannot visit each other, and we have this water body whereby you hear there are clashes between one community and another community. It's really difficult. It tells you that we really have a long way to go. But meetings like these, conferences like these, mikongamano kama hii hapa ambayo tunayo hapa Butiama, tunatarajia kwamba itakuwa ya muhimu, itatusaidia kupunguza matatizo ama kureduce some of these tunaziita barriers ambazo tunakumbana nayo kama raia wa Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki.
Naam, na ni matangazo mubashara ikiwa ni TBC1 ya Tanzania na UBC ya Uganda. Na sasa tusikilize moja kati ya wanafunzi ambao wako hapa Butiama, wanatokea Uganda, wamekuja hapa kubeba ujumbe na wanawasilisho lao, tuwasikilize.
It is a question to sound and test all our mind for the Africa that we look forward to. Be blessed as you keep watching. Bound together. Together we are bound. Family together under one bond. This great bond, the bond of knowledge. Under same roof, one roof, the East African community. Mothered and nurtured by our presidents. The East African presidents, the mother. Indeed, your child has grown. The East African community is now a giant. Is it not a credit? Is it not a credit to bear a child, and then it grows? No mere growth, but development. This pride. The pride of a parent to see this happen. Swimming in challenge, the child will sharpen. With our great countries, a step has grown. Looking for market, at first it was. Now, we have the custom union. Whoever yearns for something noteworthy, whoever yearns for something not good. A tree with fruits will get more stones. The East African community, a tree with fruits. Is it not a credit?
With good morals, the countries were set. Paramount custom unions that traders is to carry out.
Across all borders.
Using the East African currency, we shall all have to sweat, so that the currency does not lose its value. Abiding with the law, indeed it pays.
Abiding with the law, indeed it pays.
For no success will come from folding hands.
No success will come from folding hands.
Teamwork in this trading, we make a turn. Working as a unit, so you work and earn. Integrity are a good cause. Please, let us keep the political federation in East Africa. Is it not a credit?
Her Excellency Samia, the President, people like you are very rare. You serve Tanzania with love, passion, and peace. Shall we forget your love? It's now 4 years with you balancing the boat. Shall we forget her care? To her, is it not a credit?
No, it's not a credit, but a distinction.
Above all, we thank all the East African presidents. The way they sat to come up with this calls for appreciation. Dr. Milton Obote, the late Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, it's now 25 years down the road, but the legacy you said we can't forego. To us, the young leaders, you still live freshly among us, because by your motivation, we serve, we stand, and move. Oh, the late Jomo Kenyatta. The pieces apart they brought for togetherness, forming the strength we are proud of now. To the young generation, our strength lies in getting united. Remember, united we stand, divided we fall, united we stand. Is it not a distinction?
Uganda, my land of beauty. Flattering everyone is not the food. The land with all you ever think of.
Symbolizing all good works of God.
Land so attractive.
As attractive as Jasmine.
And so
is Uganda.
coming to tour and see the beauty, the pearl of Africa as it is known. Uganda, my land of beauty. I can't stop praising God for the light He gave us in Uganda. His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, for steady progress He stands.
Is it not a distinction? We are same people marching in unity to development. With strong leaders and strong countries. The East African board leading the move. Of course, we can't fail with these leaders. They aren't mere leaders, but great statesmen, nurturing countries to shape our future. In our countries, indeed, we are shaped to meet the competitive world. Not so, omwefaham, kwa heri.
Asante sana jamani, mmesikia maneno mazuri kutoka kwa vijana wadogo kabisa. Naomba tuwaongezee makofi yao jamani, makofi hayajatosha. Alafu tangu tumeanza nimekuwa tunawataja vijana sana. Vijana tupo kweli humu ndani leo? Vijana tupo? Sijasikia. Vijana tupo?
Young people, are you hearing? Are you here, young people? Okay. Those ones are from Prince Joseph Academy, Namagunga. Thank you very much. Another round of applause for those young people. Thank you very much. And so we continue. Let me again ask you, and I'm not really ordering, I'm only kindly asking, in the interest of time, for us to try to be precise and concise, because we are going from here back to Dar es Salaam, Kampala, Kigali, Mogadishu, Kinshasa. Let us factor in that so that we try to be as brief as we can, but also bring out the information as much as we should. Because remember, we have the most important thing, which is the dialogue. And we're not doing so well on time. Okay, may I now, at this juncture, invite Professor Mwambutsa Ndebesa from Makerere University. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
Thank you, MC. All protocol observed. You will not take much of your time. I will just mention some attributes of Nyerere, 3 of them. 1, an ideal, and 2, the other 2 are behavioral. I will start with the ideal. The High Commissioner there said that Mwalimu Nyerere managed to unite Tanzania. Actually, he created a nation. I testified, by the way, in 1985 when he was giving a farewell speech, a retiring speech at the University of Dar es Salaam. I was there at Nkrumah Hall. I was a student then. He did say that we failed the economy, but we managed to build a nation. And that is very important. And one of the ways in which a nation can be built, yes, can be language, but the idea of equality. Equality is very important. Inequality is a source of divisionism. Inequality globally, inequality regionally, inequality between classes, inequality between genders, inequality between tribes, inequality between religions is the mother of conflicts and violent conflicts at that. And Nyerere stood for the idea of equality. And he sacrificed everything to promote equality by whatever name, whether it was called socialism, Tanzanian characteristic, whether it was called Ujamaa. That was the idea he stood for, and he tried to practice in Tanzania. And that was very great. As long as you have equality, then you'll have unity. As long as you have inequality, you will not have unity. Have I heard that since he passed away, these bad manners of inequality have started cropping up in Tanzania? True or false, Ndugu Madaraka? I don't know, but I have heard. Maybe I've heard wrongly. But if you are going that way, please go back to the idea of Nyerere. Because inequality in East Africa, by statistics, by researchers, is on the high increase. And we should avoid that if we have to attain national unity and East African regional unity. That was an idea of equality that we should all pursue. I leave that one and go to behavior. Nyerere, Mwalimu Nyerere sacrificed. Some of us may not know that in 1961, Mwalimu Nyerere because it is risky. It is risky in Africa for one to step aside and you hand over the power of the presidency. We had a president in Uganda called Ibn Isa. He said the chair is sweet. But Nyerere sacrificed. He had also sacrificed to postpone the independence of Tanzania, of Tanganyika then, until all East African countries had become independent so that they become one country. That was also a sacrifice. You hear that? Nyerere had the spirit of sacrifice. He, as a poor country, it had a middle-income country. But by 1978-79, country, but he sacrificed to come to Uganda, to bring the troops to Uganda and remove dictator Idi Amin. That was a sacrifice. He sacrificed the economy of Tanzania. He sacrificed the lives of Tanzanians in order to liberate Ugandans. That was a big sacrifice. And I call upon Tanzanians, East Africans to sacrifice if we have to build our nations, if we have to build the East African community. 3, another behavior, humility, which is related also to sacrifice. Mwalimu Nyerere was humble. He exercised humility. You can see we are here at his home area. I think people expected to find a high rise, a 16-story building. It is not there. I'm even told that the house was built by CCM for him. You know, the presidents in Africa, they have mansions in Europe. They have mansions in America. They have mansions in their rural areas. They have mansions in their cities. Nyerere didn't have mansions. That was being a humble person. No wonder he called himself Emia Mwalimu. The presidents of Africa called themselves liberators. They called themselves prophets. They called themselves what else? Field marshals. They call themselves what else? Freedom fighters. They call themselves what? Yeah? I think there is somebody who even dared to call himself a Meja. Nyerere simply called himself a mere teacher, a Mwalimu. That meant he was humble. That is humility. The way he used even to put on was humility, was humble. And so we need, as young people, especially you young East Africans, you need to be humble, you need to sacrifice, you need to have those two behavioral characteristics, but above all, you must struggle and sacrifice to make sure that there is equality in East Africa. I am very, very disappointed to know that East African income inequality are rising in all countries. Tanzania is slightly better off, but I'm told they are also learning bad manners. Tanzanians, please go back to the ideals of Nyerere of equality. Without equality in Africa, without equality in the world, without equality in regional countries, we shall not experience peace. Whether we proselytize, whether we go and preach, whether we go and pray, as long as we don't exercise equality, equality between classes, equality between genders, equality between nations, equality between regions, equality between religions, we shall not have unity, we shall not have peace. There is what is called in new sociology, it is called structural violence. Have you heard about it, you youngsters who are learning? Structural violence is different from direct violence. When there is poverty, that is violence. Structural inequality. Tanzania has done very well in terms of avoiding direct violence, although sometimes I hear there is violence against some political groups. But generally, it has done very well in East Africa in respect of direct violence. But I'm told at the level of structural violence, they are not far much from the other East African community members. Can we please, all of us in East Africa, young and old, make sure that we practice equality, whether between regions or religions, so that we build this country. Finally, I want to say that we need to avoid mental borders. Mental borders. We might remove physical borders by signing treaties, but as long as our mentality, our ideology has not opened up for unity in East Africa, we shall not go very far. So we need cognitive. Let me be academic now. You have heard I am a professor. There is what we call cognitive liberation, cognitive unity, cognitive integrity. As long as we don't open up our minds ideologically. Bago de Ikuya Minister, in East African Community Legislative Council, do we have caucuses which cut across countries? Do we have ideological caucuses, such as the progressives and the conservatives? If it is so, I would be happy, but I doubt. So we need to cut across our borders ideologically in minds, and that is when the other treaty, which remove borders, physical borders on paper, will be achieved. Asante sana. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Asante sana, asante sana. Usawa, usawa, usawa vijana. Tumehimizwa kujenga usawa. Napenda kumkaribisha Meja Jenerali mstaafu Gregory Mugisha Muntu. Karibu sana.
Mama Amelia Obote, ndugu Madaraka, representing Mama Julius Kambarage Nyerere at the same time, the Honorable Minister of the East African Community, Honorable Magode Kuya from Uganda, Your Excellencies, the High Commissioners, Ugandan High Commissioner to Tanzania based in Dar es Salaam, Your Excellency, the High Commissioner of Tanzania based in Kampala, our colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here today to celebrate the 25 years of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere his enduring legacy and values, lessons for Mother Africa, a closer home, the East African community. The values he stood for have already been expressed by a number of speakers. He had rare qualities. It's rare for leaders in this part of the world to serve at the highest levels of government, being presidents or prime ministers, and yet remain humble as he was, and yet remain honest as he was, and yet remain incorruptible as he was. At the same time, to have the quality of being bold and firm, like he did stand for literally all the South African countries eventually which got independence, be it Namibia, be it South Africa, be it Mozambique, be it Zimbabwe. He stood firm. All those had liberation forces here in Tanzania with lots of pressure from all over the world. He stood firm. We forget fast as human beings. Rare leaders like the late Julius Kambarage Nyerere should really be up there as exemplary leadership figures on this continent, considering the existential threat that we are under as a people. And specifically for the youth, the generations before you tried what they tried to do. Even the current generations of leaders have been trying to do what they have been trying to do, but there are still gaps. The gaps are wide. I am going to try and give you some short statistics, maybe to bring out the magnitude of the problems that we do face. And I'm going to run through a few statistics. I've selected these countries, a few in Europe, because of their size, in terms of numbers and in terms of land size, to compare them with the region of East Africa, because we are now 8. At this time, Somalia hadn't become part of East Africa, so the statistics for East Africa are based on 7 countries. Belgium, Switzerland, Netherlands, and then East Africa. The World Bank indicators, these 2024 World Bank indicators. The land size in terms of square miles, Belgium is 11,774 square miles. Switzerland is 15,940 square miles. Netherlands is 16,164 square miles. The 7 countries of East Africa combined in terms of land mass is 2,104,147 square miles. Even when you combine the land size of the 3 countries, European, those who have calculators in your private time, see how many times the East African region is larger than those combined. Let's go to population. Belgium is 763,650. Switzerland, 8,902,308. Netherlands, 18,145,500. The combined population of East African community countries, when they were still 7, is 343,328,958. GDP. The size now starts shifting. In the earlier two were so huge. In terms of GDP, Belgium is, come again? Oh, sorry. $4 billion 591,000. Switzerland, 938,458 billion. Netherlands, 1,143 billion. East African community countries, the 7 of them, 349 billion, 774 million. Income per capita. Belgium, 54,291. Switzerland, 105,669. And Netherlands, 63,750. Our per capita income, the whole of the East African economy is divided by our populations, is 1,019. That's the magnitude of the differences. First, in terms of size, landmass, and population, we are so much larger. In terms of economic capacities, when you look at the per capita income, they are so much higher than where we are. So the young people, that's where the challenge is. You can look at it from two different perspectives. Failure of the past, but I would propose that you don't look so much in that direction. What has happened has already happened. You can't change it. And therefore to focus in the future. To look at the potential that there is for a region this huge in terms of landmass, in terms of economic potential, minerals, freshwater bodies, rich soils, and all the wealth that the 7, 8 countries now have. Exploiting that opportunity and build it to the sky's the limit. That's the challenge of our times. If those of us before you have failed, you need to focus on reasons why there has been failure, and therefore to see how to salvage that situation and focus on how to build this region, because the populations are also increasing. Like in Uganda, we are now 45 million people. In another 25 years, we are going to be close to 100 million. Tanzania has a larger population, I think, in the whole, Congo has about 80 million. Must be growing fast as well. Tanzania, Kenya, same. So as I finish, views have been expressed by many within the political elite, looking in our past, even before us. When we were colonized, blame has been put at the feet of those who are leaders, mostly chiefs, kings in the African continent and the African region. And rightly so. because they failed to organize resistance successfully, and therefore were colonized. And the unfortunate thing, again, people who believe that always also come out with examples given where the chiefs of old, the kings of old, were mesmerized by small things, trinkets, mirrors. I mean, as Africans, I don't think people had ever seen mirrors other than looking at themselves in water. Mirrors were never here yet. Beads and things like that, small things. But they mesmerized leaders to the extent that many sold out. Now we need to visit that, what happened then to the now. Because where there seems to be confusion is for people to look at the size of beads, look at the size of mirrors, and correctly refer to them as trinkets that mesmerize leaders as to lose direction about the destiny of their people. But fast forward. What is making us lose direction? Because you can see a skyscraper, you can see the latest models of vehicles, you can see all nature of gold and bullions that are bought into, and because of the size and the value, in the monetary value, and think that they're of high value. They are not. They are trinkets of our time. They are the trinkets of our time. Because even if you own a skyscraper, even if you own a 5-star hotel, if you compare that with destiny of a people, if you compare that with dignity of a people, it is a trinket. It is like a mirror of old. It is like beads of old. The destiny of 300+ million people, if you compare it with the desire that overwhelms many of us who are in leadership, and that someone, therefore, because of money, because of desire for immediate wealth, so they get money and build a hotel, but forget about the dignity of those 300 million people. It is a trinket. We should call it what it is. But the moment we build systems, as we have seen, there are many countries, you know, all of you, there are countries that were the same level of development as we were. Some of them, their per capita income is $40,000, $50,000. You look at Singapore, you look at South Korea. If you build a country and there are systems on the basis of which you manage that country, that there is equality before the law, that there is justice, that there is fairness, that there is transparency. It means that the country can develop, the economy becomes large, so that even those who want to buy skyscrapers, who want to build hotels, can be able to do so, but through legitimate means. You go to a development bank, you borrow, low interest rate, long-term repayment period, and the leader is able to pay back 25 years, 30 years. To the extent that when there are systems of management, that even someone who is not a minister, someone who is not even in politics, can go to the same development bank, borrow similarly, and also create wealth. That's what the problem is. For you who are young, if you are able to manage that emotion which has caused disaster on this African continent, the emotion which comes to us naturally as human beings, of instant gratification. If we don't manage that, we can come here in Butiama, others can go to South Africa to celebrate another hero of Africa, Nelson Mandela. year in, year out, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. But if we don't manage that emotion of instant gratification and build character and resilience within ourselves, and therefore be able to supplant that emotion of instant gratification and have delayed gratification, so that we must make the necessary sacrifices, build strong institutions, put in place functioning systems, have equality before the law based on that, have fairness, have transparency, and then everybody benefits, whether you're in power, whether you're also outside of power. The generations before you have largely failed. The evidence is in the statistics I was reading. But it is possible to turn around that. I suspect amongst you there may be those who've gone to other countries. You've studied in Europe, you've studied in America, you've studied in China, you've studied in Malaysia, you've studied in India, possibly other countries. Anybody who has gone in those universities would know that all people are equally intelligent. So our problem is not lack of intelligence. Our problem is weakness of character. That's why some of us, I personally, specifically, came to celebrate Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. If Mwalimu Julius Nyerere had desired to be rich, he could have become rich, but I know that even if he had become rich, it would have been through legitimate means. Because by character, when you study all the things that he was doing, he was an honest man. So being honest is not in contradiction to becoming wealthy. You can become wealthy through legitimate ways. That's what we need to build. If you fail in that, as those before you have failed, you remain as we are. You cannot have political independence without economic independence. Highways Ikani, we heard him speak here. The speeches he used to make. Spot on. Talk about the organized North and disorganization here in our part of the region. And that's what we need to concentrate on. May the Lord richly bless you. Mungu awabariki.
Thank you very much. Give Major General, retired Major General Mugisha Muntu another round of applause. Major General Muntu is the founding member of the Alliance for National Transformation in Uganda. I could also add that is a former army commander of Uganda, a humble general. Thank you very much, sir. I've been allowed to make a small amendment and invite a person who I'm going to give only 2 minutes. In Uganda, they call him the old man of the clan. He's the CEO of the Independent magazine, my friend and brother, Andrew Mwenda.
Good evening, everyone. The former First Lady of Uganda, my own mother, Mama Miriam Obote, our 2 High Commissioners, the family of Julius Nyerere, our distinguished guests in all your titles, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to begin with a quarrel against my grandson, Patrick Kamara. He has invited me, called me his brother. I am his great-grandfather. I am the father of his father. That is 1. 2, how do you call an old man of 112 years and ask him to speak for only 2 minutes when he has walked 1,500 kilometers to come here? And then, of course, 3, it is not just that in Uganda I'm an old man. I am an old man all over the world. But most especially, I'm the old man of all the clans of Africa. Let me, before I speak about a small thing about Julius Nyerere, I want to speak towards my great friend, Greg, and my good friend, Professor Mwambusi and Abiesa. This is something we Africans should be very careful about. In Africa, I feel we are so intimate with our weaknesses and failures and very blind to our strengths and achievements. And my long life on this planet, 112 years, has taught me that to succeed and to progress, it's better for you to harness or leverage your strength than try to fix your weaknesses. And I'll give you an example. In 1942, the Germans launched the second Barbarossa offensive and captured the city of Stalingrad. And the political leader, the general in charge was General Zhukov, but the political leader was Khrushchev. So because Russia was on the verge of being defeated, what Khrushchev and Zhukov were doing, they would do, if a soldier acted cowardly, they would call a firing squad and shoot them to demonstrate to every Russian soldier that weakness cannot be tolerated. But one day, a very young officer, who was not even an officer, actually a soldier, ordinary soldier, he said, why are we always using these negative examples in our war to scare people? There are so many soldiers making great sacrifices and achieving incredible results because the battle had entered sniper warfare. The Germans had entered a built-up city and they had to fight hand-to-hand combat. Why don't we use positive examples to inspire our people to do so much? For some reason, Khrushchev listened to this guy and captured that. So what Khrushchev did was to try and find out what are the heroes of the Russian army and how do we publicize their stories. So they started publicizing the stories of the great heroic acts and the heroes of Russian resistance. And the tide of war turned against Germany, and Stalingrad became Hitler's Waterloo. Now, I should tell you, Africa has had many great leaders, and Nyerere is one of them, perhaps a very shining example. But on days like this, rather than talk of all the things we have failed to do, I believe we need to discuss what are the things we as Africans have achieved. I was telling you, Greg, earlier, General Muntu, that you see the first president of Africa, founding father, to resign from office decently was Leopold Sédar Senghor in 1990 in Senegal. The second was Siak Stevens in Sierra Leone. The third was Nyerere. But even before then, President Omar of Somalia, in a multi-party election, was defeated. He went home, and a new president came in who was later overthrown by Siad Barre. There was a man in Ghana, a soldier called Afrifa. He handed over power peacefully to civilian rule. Olusegun Obasanjo in 1979 handed over power peacefully to civilian rule. And Jerry Rawlings had done it in 1978 in Ghana. So we need to look for these examples and tell young people the great heroic actions of those African leaders and pay less attention to those. It is important for us to be reminded of our failures, but it should not be the most important thing. Let me talk about Nyerere's simplicity. Talk of Milton Obote, whom I knew intimately. Obote was like a dad to me. He was exactly like Nyerere, never accumulated a lot of wealth, served his country with dedication, maybe made a few mistakes, but there is so much to tell about Milton Obote. Look at Idi Amin. Whatever you can criticize him about, Idi Amin never looted the state, never built great palaces, never made money out of power. And you can go on and look at people like Sekou Touré, Madibo Keita, Thomas Sankara, Samora Machel. Africa has these shining examples of honest leaders who did not build mansions in Europe. Let us talk about them. It will inspire young people. Rather than condemn, be talking about Mobutu and Omar Bongo. There may even be exceptions, not the rule. So we need to have a positive view of ourselves as Africans and mobilize young people around our achievements, our strengths, our nobility. So, having said that, which was just a preamble, let me briefly talk about Nyerere. And I will more or less make the same points people have made. And I want to approach it in a different way. If you look at Greg Muntu's presentation of our economic failure, actually Nyerere's presidency was an unmitigated economic disaster for Tanzania. Between 1961 and 1985, when he retired, Tanzania's GDP shrank by 40%. It is one of the biggest and catastrophic economic failures in the history of countries. Maybe it could compete with North Korea, Cuba, and not even Mbutu Zaire performed better than Tanzania. So, why is Nyerere highly respected in Tanzania and everywhere else, yet he presided over catastrophic economic failure? It is because of two things. In leadership, I think it must have been an American general called Norman Schwarzkopf. Say, good leadership, assuming you had competence and values, what would you choose? He said, it's better to have a leader who has values more than one who has competences. It's better to be a person of values rather than a person of competence. It's always good to have both. But if you have to choose between the two about a leader, it should be values. The greatness of Nyerere was a man there to building a united Tanzania was so deep that in pursuit of that, he made serious policy mistakes and the country suffered grievous economic decline. But Tanzanians forgave him, appreciated him, admired him and loved him because he did not make those mistakes for his personal self-aggrandizement. He did it in the honest and honest belief that he was building his country. And when it failed, as Mwambutsi and Debesa said, he admitted his mistake and left power, said, let others carry the torch. So if you ask me about Nyerere, his greatness was not in building a great economy. It was in having deeply entrenched values that guided his leadership. So that his economic failures dwarf in significance when put side by side with his idealism, his vision of Tanzania, and his personal values. The second thing about leadership is it's better to have, and it's related, between two things, strategy and character. Nyerere was a great strategist, but his greatest strength was his character. He was a man of a noble character. He never sought material personal aggrandizement, never sought power so that he can be powerful and threaten others, but he saw power as an instrument of serving the public good of Tanzania and of serving the good of the rest of Africa. He was willing to go to great lengths in pursuit of the good of Tanzania and the good of Africa. I'll give you an example of us in Uganda. One of the things that led Nyerere to leave power is that his support for Ugandan liberation from Idi Amin was an economic catastrophe for Tanzania. There is a book written by a former World Bank resident representative in Tanzania, later became an economist at the World Bank, called Sebastian Edwards. The book is called Toxic Aid: The Collapse and Reconstruction of Tanzania. He shows that the cost to Tanzania of the 1979 invasion of Uganda was 1.5 billion in the dollars of that time. The country went down the drain. But Nyerere was able to inflict such cost on his country because of the good of another country. I don't know anybody who can do that.
Asante sana.
Very few leaders are willing to sacrifice so much of their own, even us as individuals. How many of us are willing to sacrifice a significant share of our income to support vulnerable kids on the street, to support those who cannot help themselves? And that's what Nyerere was doing with this country. So I think that we should celebrate Nyerere in understanding that he was a human being who made mistakes, failed in many things. But why we celebrate him is because he was a man of character, integrity, and values. He was not a great general like Napoleon or Yoweri Museveni. Certainly he was a great statesman, but what made him great was the integrity of his character. Thank you so much for listening to an old man who is 10 years older than Julius Nyerere. Thank you.
Asante sana. Vijana, tupo? Nashukuru sana. Sasa nichukue nafasi hii kumkaribisha Mheshimiwa Koloni mstaafu Fredi Mwasige. Karibu sana, na tukuombe baada ya mazungumzo yako umkaribishe Mheshimiwa Waziri. Karibu.
Asante sana dada. Habari za jioni. How are you? I'll start by thanking God for the gift of life and for enabling us to gather here today. Therefore, to also to remind you that God created us, each of us, for a purpose. And each of us has a mission. And one of the missions is today. Mama wetu, Mama Mary Obote, our senior comrades, Honorable Minister, my former commander, ndugu yangu Mheshimiwa Madaraka, ndugu mbalozi wa Tanzania nchini Uganda, na waheshimiwa wote, itifaki imezingatiwa. In English it is protocol observed. Now, I'll be very brief, but I will touch what my previous speakers have said. First, all of us here, majority of us never saw Mwalimu Nyerere. Only a few of us saw him. So we are like blind men. Blind men were taken and they touched an elephant. And when they were taken back to their places, they were asked to describe what an elephant is. Those who touched the ears said the elephant is like a skin, a big skin. Those who touched the tail, they said it is a small rope. Those who touched whatever, but in their own way. So here today, we have had each individual describing Mwalimu Nyerere. And I'm very sure if all of you had an opportunity, you would have your own view of Mwalimu Nyerere. But for me, I will tell you what I think was paramount. Mwalimu Nyerere was an extraordinary leader. He was an extraordinary individual. He was a leader who exhibited the qualities of Plato. He was a vision leader and a freedom fighter. He was imbued with profound humility and refused to be identified the icon that he was. And this has been said by Professor. In Kiswahili, tunasema, Mwalimu alikuwa kiongozi mwenye maono na mpiganaji wa uhuru. Alija na unyenyekevu wa hali ya juu na alikataa kutambulikwa kama mfano alikuwa. That's what it means, what I've said. Now, having said that, we are describing Nyerere after 25 years. But what have we achieved? And what was his... Sometimes when I listen to the anthem of Tanzania, I see Nyerere. It is the only anthem that talks, God bless Africa. It touches, bless the children of Africa. So that means his vision, his mission was Africa, united Africa. Because he had realized that these imperialists, together with other founding fathers that are lined up here, they realized that there was a challenge and they had a mission to fulfill of uniting Africa. But their mission was interrupted. And it is our time, it is our duty to carry on and fulfill that mission. And that's why we are here today. The imperialists fragmented us deliberately to exploit us. With all these resources we have, the 1.4 billion that we are, if we were united, as Mwalimu Nyerere wanted, as Kwame Nkrumah wanted, as Museveni wants today, if we had one language, Swahili, if we had one army, if we had one currency, who would touch us? So this is what we should be aiming at, by emulating exactly what Mwalimu Nyerere was aiming at. We should aim at having one language, Swahili. I thank AU it has directed that we must adopt Swahili as official language. So we should go for that. You young Ugandans, I want to challenge you. In order for you to trade better, in order to interact with your brothers in East Africa, please, please learn Swahili. Kindly learn Swahili. Therefore, what these founding fathers realized at that time, if they came back today, what would they see? So we should be really aiming at a united Africa. And my president keeps reminding us, he's a committed disciple of Mwalimu Nyerere. But he's a frustrated disciple. But he keeps reminding us that we must unite for strategic security. If we don't unite, we shall be eaten up by these imperials, because their mission has not come to an end. The earlier mission over there is still as it is today. So it is our time, it is you people, to make sure that we unite in order to be secure. It is the only insurance for you people. It is the only insurance for our future children, for our next generation. Integration. The second reason is prosperity. We are all producing now, we have built a capacity, but we need markets for our products. We need to build regional markets, and we produce products of East Africa. Like our founding fathers had that vision. Say, Uganda, you have textile industries. Somalia, beef. Tanzania, this. They had that vision, but we have abandoned that one. So we should go back. Comrade Chisembo, please, we should go back to the founding fathers. The records are there. Each country had a dedicated industry as a center of excellence. But now we are producing everything, in the same products, and we are fighting for the same market. And that's why private sector is guiding the government to impose tariff and non-tariff barriers in order to protect their products, which is not correct. However, I want to really call upon the Yara. I've been calling with the Yara. I've been calling with the Yara. And I'm educated to read over your articles. And one of the articles says, integration must be taken to the masses. The integration is even talked by top leaders, but the masses are not aware. These students are not aware, because nobody tells them about integration. So I challenge the IARA members of parliament. Say, look, when you go to these capitals for 2 weeks, have a week in the masses. Have a week with the masses. Go there and talk to them. If you go to Kigali, the same. If you go to Bujumbura, the same. Because they go in these cities. So this is my humble prayer to the YARA members, and this is what you should be demanding of them. If they can do that, if we can unite as East Africa, then SADC unites, then these other countries also unite. We may eventually achieve the desired dream of our ancestors, because it doesn't pay to continue blaming the Bazungu in 1884, 85. It doesn't help us. We should not quarrel with the history. We should be found now forging unity, integration, in order to achieve, in order to utilize and harness our resources, so that we can now deal with those former imperials mutually, on mutual understanding. We should trade mutually as equals, not as weak partners. Therefore, I want to thank Ndugu Chisembo and all the brains who organized this retreat. And this fellowship should mark a continued, every year, 14th we must come here. This is what I think. We should come here and rededicate and carry out an evaluation of how far we have gone. And we should all call upon our leaders to talk and remind our leaders. You see, finally, this Christianity had a very clever design. If we didn't go to churches, if we didn't go to mosques, we would have forgotten about Jesus and God. We would be terrible sinners. But every week, every Sunday we go to church and we are reminded that we should not sin, that sin is bad, that we will go to hell and go this trail of fire. So likewise, this ideology of integration, the ideology of working together, the ideology of protecting our resources should be a constant reminder to all of us so that we don't forget. I'm very sure if we are constantly reminded, if we constantly talk about it in such retreats, in such fellowships, we may achieve what has been where we have failed. Therefore, I want to thank all the organizers, and I want to thank all the speakers, and I want to thank God for enabling us to have this day, and call upon Him and call upon you, and to assure you that God works through people. Sembo has started as an individual. Tomorrow there will be others, but let us work in unity. I've told you there is a man called Yambwenu. Yambwenu is like you, but unfortunately he has not had the opportunity to come to this level. So we should look for those people who are individually mobilizing in their heart, in their brains, in their hands, with their hands, who are mobilizing for integration. If we can work as a team, we shall achieve what our founding fathers wanted to achieve. Thank you very much for inviting me here, and I thank you, and I will continue to support you and guide you, and we are all your soldiers. Please command us. We are here. With those few words, I'd like to take this honor of inviting our minister and our elder, Baba Magodi Kuya. Karibu sana. Karibu sana. Asante sana.
Ni bahati mbaya sana leo sikuweza kujua nitazungumza lugha gani. Ingekuwa bora ikiwa mimi nilikuwa nazungumza Kiswahili, lakini because you all seem to be so conversant in the language, I got frightened to bring my Swahili intonation in this meeting. But I'm a good student. I'm beginning to learn. Our host, that is the family of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, whose life we are celebrating here today. The ambassadors and high commissioners present. Mama Miria Obote, who was my elder, from the, she was as she was assuming to be the first lady in Uganda. I was a young student, and I saw her come and lead us in many things. The presenters so far who have come, the organizers of this meeting, the youths, ladies and gentlemen, protocol observed. It has been my fortune or misfortune to have come here by a kind of default. Because unfortunately I was not aware of this particular fest until very late. I was actually patient elsewhere. Then my minister, who ought to have come to bless this occasion, happened to be involved in other duties, and therefore requested me, asked me whether I was trim enough to take on this duty of coming in what she thought was a very long journey. I saw it as an opportunity. So I said, okay, even though I'm not yet recovered to begin, I'm still hobbling, I will take a journey. And I came through Kenya, slowly. and discovered a lot of things which I would have not have known if I had not made the trip. I have now a lot of knowledge which I've gathered in my process of going, which I'll be able to share together with others, young and old, like me, and who have not been here. Therefore, I'm grateful that this occasion has been held and has given me an opportunity to visit a name that I was greatly attached to right from my early political days. When independence was coming to Africa, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere was a household name in our countries. His passion for independence, for the dignity of the African, for unity of our countries, for Africa as a whole, was a new thing which really captured our minds and therefore brought us much, much nearer him, even though some of us who were at that time did not have time to have met him personally. Therefore, when I am here to see where he was buried and to relive those moments, the moments of his leaving us and the legacy that he left, is quite an experience. It's quite a moving emotion to us. And until you know, if we had had the time, there will be many, many things to be talked about. And that I would have happily shared, especially with the younger people. But I can only say one or two things about Mwalimu. His greatness cannot be disputed, because in the height of politics of Africa, he achieved the highest crest and is remembered as a name which cannot be forgotten in history. But there's a danger that when you concentrate only on the greatness of the man, many young people who were not there, who do not know the times that he lived, might be tempted to say even great things might have expiry date. There are those who are easily can mistake the greatness of Nyerere to be time-barred, only to be something of the past. I am one of those who hesitates to talk about Mwalimu Nyerere as if he's of the past. Mwalimu Nyerere lived in our time when we were young. He did his job in the past, great things, but his work is not of the past. He's a man of the future, because that is what he represented. He represented the future of Africa, his passion for it. So, concentrating only on talking of, today that's why I'm not going to talk about, others have already alluded to, the great things that he did. I want to only raise one or
TBC1, ukweli na uhakika.